Hey guys, and welcome to a battle between Meme Claw, also known as V-Claw, in charge of the mighty and ferocious Lizardmen, up against Mulsantir and the forces of Chaos, led by not Archaon, I call him Archaon there, Kolek Sun Eater himself. He would very not much be too happy with that comparison to the lesser of the warriors of Chaos Lords. So without further ado, let's hop in here and have a little look at the build. So we'll slow it down nice and quickly to start with, and have a little look. So for the forces of the Lizardmen in the front line, we have some Chameleon Skinks paired up with Skink Skirmishers. Chameleon Skinks themselves probably being the most pesky skirmisher unit in the game, applying poison, having missile resistance, and being not too shabby with speed as well. These guys certainly being an annoying core. Looks like up in the sky to support these guys, we have a Skink Chief as well. Cheap and cheerful option who can sit on a target all day long and slowly pepper down his health. Over on the right hand side, it looks like we have even more skirmishers as well. 3 Pterodon Riders, all coming in with the Fire Lich Bowlers. Not a unit I use particularly often. I quite like the Pterodon Riders themselves, but the Fire Lich Bowler method I haven't tried out too much, but should do some pretty decent damage, especially up against the pesky skirmish and Marauder Horsemen, and also Marauders in general. For the rest of the Lizardman build, looks like quite defensively sitting back in the swamp here, which is pretty funny considering the Skinks are actually aquatic, so they get a little bit of a bonus fighting in here. Actually, maybe they just don't get debuffed like other factions. So it looks like we have a mixture of Skink cohorts of Javelins in the front line and a secondary line of red-crested Skinks dotted all the way along, so very Skink-themed army here. We even have the cohort of Sotek, regiment-renowned red-crested Skinks who can refuse to die. We have a Skink Priest of Heavens here, up on top of a Mighty Stegodon as well, coming in with that awesome crossbow. And he's brought just Comet of Cassandora himself here, so certainly going for a few nukes here. And Red Crested Skink Chief as well, leading the forces, just puddling his way through the swamps there. Very badass mod. I wish we got to see this guy a little bit more often. Coming in with Warrior's Crest, plus 40 melee attack and 24 melee defense, and Opal Amulet as well. A very good ability, gives him 22% damage resistance. And it looks like that's going to be it for the forces of the Lizardmen. So not the biggest punching power overall, but certainly a bit of a skirmish build with 1 or 2 heavy hitters, and very coolly skink themed. So for the forces of Chaos, we have the traditional Marauder Horsemen with thrown axes in the front line. We have 2 of those alongside some Horse Masters. These guys pretty much a staple in most Chaos builds up against the Dino Boys. For a front line, we have cheap and cheerful Chaos Marauders who are going to be backed up by Chosen here. So Chosen, pretty badass overall. You can go toe-to-toe with Temple Guard and slowly drag those guys apart if you're expecting that type of kind of standard Lizardman build. Apart from that though, great stats across the board, silver shields and all that good stuff. We have a Chaos Giant in the centre pocket, which is a really fantastic looking model. I love the differences between the Giants with Beastmen, Chaos, Greenskins, all that good stuff. His droopy kind of fangs hanging out his flesh there are quite cool. We have a Chaos Sorcerer of Metal as well, who's just popped a Forbidden Rod, coming with Final Transmutation, Plague of Rust, and Kolek Sun Eater. The basically living god here of the Dragon Ogre Shagoffs is a very badass guy indeed. Huge model, ton of punching power. Looks like he just bought Stand or Die though, so gone pretty naked as far as it goes, and he's going to be trotting forward leading these forces, trying to get to grips with some of those pesky skinks. So I'm expecting a very skirmish heavy play build here by the Lizman. And Fire Lich Bowlers are starting to unleash some shots here. Looks like a lot of the shots unfortunately coming up a little bit short there. But yeah, not too much damage so far on the Chaos Marauders, but we'll see when these guys actually get their sights in a little bit. Looks like they're trying to pick on some of the stragglers, which can unfortunately happen. Skink Chief getting a little bit danger close here. Unfortunately, some Marauder Horseman needs to fall back. He's a very squishy guy indeed, rocking 3,000 health, which isn't too bad, but only 30 armor. He can get pulled down quite quickly. We also have some Chaos Warhounds of Poison as well, which looks like I skipped over. So, very defensive play coming by the Skinks, falling back as far as possible, which is quite a clever move here. It's going to drag the Chaos forces into this swampland here, and he's quite happy to skirmish with the rest of his forces before moving up with these guys into the misty swampland. Looks very cool and thematic. Force of Chaos just trying to get to grips at the moment with these Pterodon Riders, so overcome the Marauder Horse Masters and the Thrown Axes, but with the Fire Lich Bowlers, I feel like the Pterodons are going to trade pretty effectively here, and you can see the little explosion damage coming in. A lot of these Marauder Horse Masters taking a ton of damage here. They've been blobbed up a little bit too much, need to spread themselves out a little bit and get moving as well. They can fire what's on the move, of course, making them a little bit of a tougher target. In comes the Skink Chief as well, going to be supporting his Pterodon Riders, and are we going to see some rock drops coming in here? Oh, looks like just fun fire each bowler shots as they do ride over top of these guys for now. Try and get a little bit of a better angle and force these guys out wide. Chaos Sorcerer Metal as well, just poking his head around, having little looks to see what is going on. But so far, this skirmish game certainly going in favour of the Lizardmen. Marauder Horsemasters down to about half health, and one of the units of Marauder Horsemen already forced off. Yeah, perfect target here. The beat-up unit should just chase these guys off the battlefield, ensure that they're completely gone, while the other healthy units track down the remains of these guys. So Chaos are being forced forward here, slowly being lured into the trap set by these Skink Skirmishers and Chameleon Skinks. Probably just want to start peppering the Chaos Giant, try and get a little bit of damage where they can. But those Chaos Warhounds could be very quick on their heels here and start hunting these guys down, which could lure out the rest of the Lizardmen forces. As in the back line, you can see good diligent play, Terran Riders just forcing off those Marauder Horsemen, and the other two units constantly hounding these guys, slowly trying to drag them down. Skink Skirmishers have been found here, but going to simply be falling back, unleashing volley after volley of their little blow darts into the Chaos Marauders here. But these guys aren't going to be too fast. They're shielded, pretty cheap and cheerful as well. But of course, we'll be getting poisoned and slowly slowed down here. But speaking of poison, the Chaos Warhounds slowly, or quite quickly actually, I suppose, dart their way between the trees and start hunting down these poor skinks. But of course, they are now in swampland. This is the skink territory indeed, as these guys bound forward as quickly as possible and are going to catch some of these skink skirmishers, slowly start to drag them down as well. And Lizardmen happy to sit back for now, just to see what the great bow is shooting at. It looks like he's trying to go after the Chaos Giant or Kolek here, who has had enough of this, pesky skirmish, and he wants to get in there and just go fisticuffs with anyone he can find. And some poor skink skirmishers are getting flattened here by the absolute huge Warhammer of Kolek. In the back lines, it looks like the Pterodons are taking a bit of damage here, so a little bit more of an even matchup now. The third one has disappeared, but overall it has taken away quite a large amount of the mobility from the Chaos Forces. Skink Chief as well, relatively healthy. As the battle is slowly being dragged towards these skinks here. These guys are going to need to push forward in just a second. We've got red-crested skinks in the front line now. It's a bit of reorganisation. Skink cohorts with javelins, just peppering Kolek where they can. And of course, Chaos don't have any healing, so any extra damage you can do early on, even if it's just minute little javelins into the thick hide of Kolek, it's certainly worth doing. In the back lines, Marauder Horsemasters slowly being shut down here, although Pterodons have equally been heavily beaten down health-wise as well. The front line is about to get underway. Chaos Marauders trying to fan out a little bit to get to grips with their enemy. And Chaos Giant just taking a little bit of damage as he slowly wades through here, trying to find a bit of a little tiny patch of high ground here amongst the swamps as well, trying to speed himself up a bit, but really slowed down here, and the co-ops so take a latch around him. In fact, they're going to run straight past him here, hop on top of those Chaos Marauders whilst Poppin refuses to die, as the battle does get underway all across the board here. Kolek slowly trotting through the swamp here, but really being slowed down, going to be heading after that Skink Priest of Heavens, which is not a bad shout at all. Fling Skink cohorts left, right and centre, but hopping on top of the big beastie himself. Chaos Giant equally trying to get involved, but taking so many javelins to the face now, and he only comes in with 30 armour, which is pretty damn low, so each of these javelins is going to pay the price. Balance power already starts going in favour of the Lizardmen here, as the red-crested skinks easily destroy Chaos Marauders and force off the Horsemasters as well. Probably a couple of rock drops coming in. I would say these guys are relatively healthy, just hounding the poor poison hounds here. And red-crested skink chief is going to be hopping in up against Kolek, which is a bold move indeed. He can pop all his buffs and become relatively tanky, but a final transmutation coming down, and Kolek himself is an absolute monster. Even with Opal Amulet and all the buffs red-crested skink chief can bring, it might not be enough here. Chosen getting absolutely destroyed here. Looks like a comet must have come down on these guys. Pterodon Riders as well, just hopping over top of them, trying to do that constant added up damage. And it looks like the forces of Chaos have unfortunately just been picked apart here in a rather quick game. Pterodon Riders slowly need to come back and finish off Horsemasters where possible. And the Chaos don't really have anywhere to go. And this is a really nice example of why Lizardmen are such a good race in my opinion. Apart from the fact, they can bring all kinds of fire dockers and so forth, which will always have a special place in my heart. They have so many different ways of playing. Normally up against the Chaos, you'll see Temple Guard, big dinosaurs and so forth. But here we're going to see a much more skirmish-heavy approach with the Skinks luring the Chaos into the swampland and getting their mobility game and control of the map. So dragging down Chaos Giant and so forth. You normally could do huge damage up against big monsters, even go toe-to-toe with Temple Guard for a limited amount of time. But up against these Skinks, he just can't catch them. Slowly gets filled with darts, slowed down, and dragged to a murky death here. These brave little Terran Riders just going to hide up in the skies here so far. Could drop down now that they've run out of ammunition. And the Skink Chief as well, simply sitting on Kolek, firing those darts, occasionally doing some nice damage. However, battle not over yet. There's still some chosen forces as well. And they're going to tear apart Red Crested Skinks very healthily. And they've managed to saturate as well quite nicely with Kolek here. As the Red Crested Skink tries to come back in, but looks like it's going to be a early withdrawal from the forces of Chaos, which is understandable. It can be quite frustrating sometimes this game, especially up against a skirmish heavy force. So let's go to the end stats here and have a look. I think it was most likely over. Unfortunately for the forces of Chaos, they still have quite a few chosen left active though, and they can certainly tear their way through those skinks pretty effectively. So maybe a little bit of a quick draw out there, unfortunately, by Mel Santir, but obviously understandable coming up against a skirmish heavy force. Played very well here by V Claw. I actually really liked the Terran Riders with Fire Lich Bowlers. I didn't expect them to do quite so good as they did up against the Marauder Horsemasters and Horsemen in general, the ones with the throwing axes. They did really decent work and made the Chaos player have to make a decision. Dragged him into the swamps where the little skinks could certainly pay for themselves. Coming in with those javelins and blow darts, they managed to tear down the key target of the giant, and that allowed the Red Crested Skinks to go, and beat up the Chaos Marauders. Chosen were a little bit more tricky, but they were so heavily outnumbered by that point, it was pretty much game over. But regardless, GG's to both players, and a massive thank you to V-Claw for sending this in. And before I forget, V-Claw does in fact have a Twitch and YouTube channel, so hopefully I will remember to put those in the description just down below. But I am recording this a day in advance because I work all day Tuesday, but I want to get an extra video out anyway. So just type in V-Claw and you will find him, but I'll certainly try and remember anyway. So if you guys want to see your videos featured on the channel, feel free to join my Discord, link in the description down below. That's where I announce all my tournaments and all that stuff, so you guys can feel free to get involved if I can get my mouth working there. But yeah, also feel free to give a big old thumbs up to the video and subscribe if you're into all those Total War content videos that I do. And until next time, guys, peace, and as always, stay awesome.